This is the Epoch Times.
Welcome to Epoch Audio, showcasing the best journalism covering news, culture, and society, addressing issues overlooked or avoided by other media. For the text version of this and more articles providing truth, tradition, and hope, please go to theepochtimes.com.
Faith Under Fire: The Persecution of Christians in Xi's China, by Michael Zhuang. Christians in China, who have faced constant persecution under the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, have been meeting in underground churches for years since the state officially prohibited all churches outside the CCP-controlled 3 self-patriotic movement churches. Those who refuse to attend the state church continue to meet in their homes and at other venues. According to China Aid, in 2022, the CCP's persecution of underground Christians has been escalating day by day. The environment has become increasingly hostile to foreign missionaries because the CCP views their activities as Western influence. In July, China's new anti-espionage law defined illegal religious activities as espionage, and foreign nationals can face lengthy jail terms under the new law. Christianity under Xi's regime. Under Chinese leader Xi Jinping, the CCP has implemented an unprecedented suppression of Christians. China Aid expressed concern over the CCP's demanding loyalty to Xi Jinping from state-sanctioned churches, and the situation for house churches is much worse. Under the CCP, the regime implemented the 3 self-patriotic movement, which organized Christian churches under a CCP-supervised entity. What's taught at these state-sanctioned churches must be approved by the CCP. On the other hand, house churches or underground churches function independently of the state, often in private homes and apartments, and are targeted by the regime. Pastor Luigi Bilucaglia, an independent Baptist missionary from Quebec, Canada, to China for 18 years, told the Epoch Times, "It has always been bad, but it started to get much worse in 2018 when President Xi changed the constitution and became president in perpetuity. He effectively became emperor, and the Xi dynasty began. They started attacking churches severely at the time. I had to go early to our church on Sundays, and I looked to see if there's police where we're located." Mr. Bilucaglia and his family were expelled from China in late 2021 after he had lived in the country since 2003 as a missionary. CCP authorities raided his church and detained him for interrogation about his activities in China. He said, "They brought me in for interrogation. The lead interrogator punched me in the back of my head and told the other Chinese Christians that they were in there because of me. They were trying to divide us so that someone might incriminate themselves. After they decided to expel me instead of imprison me, I was given 7 days to leave the country, and during those 7 days they brought me to 5 different police stations and interrogated me in the hopes that they could entrap me in my testimony and associate me with some foreign entity so that I could be accused of espionage." Bob Fu, president of China Aid, said the CCP is trying to rewrite the Bible, changing the text to say that Jesus was a lawbreaker and a killer. This was corroborated by Mr. Bilucaglia's experience. He said the party rushed to state churches to buy as many copies of the Bible as they could before they stopped printing the current version. Another concerning trend is reports that people in custody have been having their blood tested, which could be a sign of organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience. A person whose blood type is a match for a potential buyer might be killed for his or her organs. Mr. Bilucaglia has heard accounts of the police drawing blood from Chinese Christians. He said, "I hear a lot about prisoners being shot, with doctors waiting to take their organs and to sell them." Attack on Christian charities and schools. Dee Smith, who lives in Alabama, was a missionary to China with her husband, who's now deceased, for more than 2 decades. They started a church in central China, but the church has since been divided into 14 locations for their Sunday service because of the CCP's crackdown on house churches. Miss Smith told the Epoch Times what Christians from China told her last year. A SWAT team of 20 to 30 police cars came to the orphanage run by the church and took the orphans away to put them in state orphanages. The police said that they were not allowed to organize orphanages under the banner of Christianity. The Bibles are not allowed, and no one is allowed to minister there. They also started to have posters on every building in China offering rewards to people who report on large gatherings. Since 2005, the orphanage has been supported by the church that Miss Smith and her late husband started. The Chinese regime seeks to completely remove Christianity from Chinese society, as it sees it as a threat to the party's communist ideology. Along with house churches established by foreign missionaries, there were dozens of Christian schools in China using the Accelerated Christian Education, or ACE program, a Christian education curriculum from the United States. Those schools weren't registered with the Chinese state, as the CCP strictly prohibits teaching religion to the next generation. Many Christians opt for ACE schools following an American curriculum because they don't want their children to be force-fed the CCP's propaganda in state schools. Mr. Bilucaglia said they want to brainwash the next generation with only communism. He reported that all those Christian schools were forcibly shut down in early 2022 after CCP authorities tracked down the IP addresses of all participants in an online conference for Christian school educators across China. Foreigners related to the schools were expelled from the country, and many Chinese teachers still face investigations and surveillance to this day. Draconian surveillance state. The CCP has increasingly used its high-tech surveillance state to control citizens and to persecute Christians. China is already notorious for its heavily censored internet and social media. In March 2022, the CCP introduced new rules banning all forms of online religious teachings and religious groups. The regime reportedly recruited and trained content monitors for its social media. Miss Liu, a Christian Sunday school teacher from central China, told the Epoch Times, "After they introduced the new rules, we became very careful when we do Bible studies and worship services on Zoom. Usually, we try to have several people sharing one device, so the online meetings don't appear so big. The police also randomly check people's phones on the street. If they see that we're using Zoom on our phones, they'll delete the app and question people about it." Pastor Joseph Jung, a Chinese Christian pastor in exile in New Zealand, said online preaching content is frequently banned. He said, "We frequently change platforms. As soon as our content gets a certain number of views, the authorities would ban it. We are trying to find new online sharing platforms all the time." Chinese house churches usually meet in secret in apartments. Mr. Bilucaglia said the CCP introduced cash rewards for people who report on church gatherings or even on people who merely hold opinions that differ from those of the CCP. Ms. Liu said, "We were told to switch off our phones or at least set it to flight mode on Sundays before we leave our homes for church. Otherwise, the authorities can track your phones through GPS, and when they notice people gathering in an apartment on a Sunday, they will come knocking on the doors." Weaponizing the education system. From the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989 to the Hong Kong pro-democracy protests in 2019, movements have started from university campuses where free thinking and Western ideals generally flourished. Therefore, the CCP views education as critical in indoctrinating the next generation to become loyal communists, and doing so is a way to safeguard the stability of the regime. Ms. Liu recalled when Chinese state security officials raided her home. "They warned me, saying that I'm strictly prohibited from teaching religion to children or university students. They tried to get me to quit my Christian faith. Right after they raided my home looking for Bibles and Christian books, I saw new propaganda banners around our neighborhood saying no illegal religious activities are allowed." Before the CCP usurped power in China through a violent communist revolution in 1949, China was a staunch ally of the United States and the Western world. The communists first sought to divide population into different social classes, the oppressed and the oppressors, and the regime encouraged violence against certain classes of people that they branded as capitalists. Christianity was a target for persecution since the CCP viewed it as a plague from the capitalist West. Religious liberty was a threat to the CCP because it prevented people from being indoctrinated into communism. From Karl Marx to Vladimir Lenin, communists have viewed religion as capitalist oppression, and therefore the Soviet Union and Communist China actively sought to eradicate religion when they took power. Today, the CCP has created a majority atheist country, with religious leaders and followers having moved underground to continue to practice their faith. Mr. Bilucaglia said, "I preached the Bible, which was the worst thing for the communists. It sets people free mentally and physically. I believe the population of China want to get rid of the Communist Party if they can. Thanks for listening to Epoch Audio. This was Faith Under Fire, the Persecution of Christians in Xi's China. Written by Michael Zhuang and read for you by Chris Rod.
For more Epoch Times articles in text, please visit theepochtimes.com.
This is the Epoch Times.